President Obama held a town hall where he spoke out on the needless death of George Floyd in Minneapolis the other week. Let's take a look at some of the coverage, shall we? Barack Obama delivers uplifting speech amid protests following George Floyd's death. He wants to make people in power uncomfortable. Let's take a look at the fuller quote here. "This is not an either or, this is a both," he said. "And to bring about real change, we both have to highlight a problem and make people in power uncomfortable. But we also have to translate that into practical solutions and laws that could be implemented and monitored and make sure we're followed up on." Alright. Now this is interesting. He said we have to bring about real change, we have to make people in power uncomfortable, and we need new laws. George Floyd died at the hands of the Minneapolis Police Department. Those police were hired and trained by the city of Minneapolis, whose mayor is Democrat Jacob Frey. Here he is, crying at the funeral for George Floyd, to speculate on whether he's just trying to keep his job. Actually, that's not a danger of him keeping his job. So George Floyd died at the hands and knee of the Minneapolis Police Department. Those police were under the direct control of Democrat officials from a local level all the way up to the state level. The governor of Minnesota is also a Democrat, Tim Walz. Seats were reserved for him and the mayor of Minneapolis at this funeral. So if we were to take Barack Obama's words to heart, the change needs to occur in Minnesota. The laws are flawed in Minnesota, the leadership is flawed in Minnesota, and Minneapolis, where George Floyd's death occurred. Let's take a look at whether President Obama is speaking about the need to change Minnesota's laws based on their historical precedent here. From 1932 onward, the state has primarily voted Democratic. Now, isn't that interesting? So if Minnesota needs their leadership to change, then one would presume Obama means that Minnesota needs to stop voting white Democrats into office. They would seem to be the source of the problem that led to the demise of George Floyd. But before that happens, what about Obama's other idea of making people in power uncomfortable? What did Obama mean by that? I guess one way to make those in power uncomfortable would be to invite them to George Floyd's funeral, where both Mayor Frey and Governor Walz had reserved seating. Let's see him here. Why haven't any Minneapolis or Minnesota officials offered to resign? No one asked them to resign. No reporters or news service has asked anyone in the state of Minnesota if public officials should resign over this. And there has been 0 protest marches demanding that the mayor or governor or anyone in that state resign. If we check here, just Googling the simple phrase, "protesters demand resignations." Look at that. They demand resignations of random Republicans across the nation. So we see here, Montco Commissioner Joe Gale needs to resign. Lauderdale County needs a sheriff to resign. Republican officials thousands of miles away from George Floyd need to resign. But those Democrat officials whose policies figuratively put their Democrat knees on George Floyd's neck do not have to resign. Okay, wow. That makes President Obama's remarks all the more clear. If we are to translate the crocodile tears of President Obama, the solution to failed Democrat policies that did not protect George Floyd is to, drum roll please, elect more Democrats. This is a remarkable sequence just over a matter of days and weeks, where the Democratic Party and their sympathetic news media take the knee of Democrat oppression off the neck of George Floyd, and after rivers of articles, spin, and fake news coverage, they've turned the ire of the protesters to Republicans who had nothing to do with anything that happened to George Floyd. If we can forecast what Obama's goal is with his remarks, look forward to the next few months. The eventual goal of the news media is to gently remove that officer's knee from Floyd's fallen form, make you forget that Democrat leadership from city, county, and state led to this incident, and finally, they are magically going to place President Trump's knee on George Floyd, just in time for the November election. We're told Joe Biden will attend a funeral in Texas for George Floyd as well. For George Floyd's friends and family, what happened to him is a tragedy. For the Democratic Party, it's all crass opportunity and their greed for power. It's not about making the powerful uncomfortable, as Obama lied. It's about putting Joe Biden in the White House, where he can govern precisely as all the white Democrats misgoverned in Minnesota, to Mr. Floyd's regret. Rather than fixing things, Democrats want to export that same Minnesota leadership to the rest of the country. No thanks.